Unless Congress comes to an agreement on spending, massive federal funding cuts will go into effect on Friday. And if you don't think they'll impact you, chances are you're not seeing the possible effects just yet.
Texas lawmakers say the cuts might cause programs not funded by the federal government to stretch their dollars. KXAN's political reporter Josh Hinkle has more.
Well, we're talking $322 million in federal cuts to Texas this first year. The top three agencies taking the hit: the Texas Education Agency, State Health Services, and the Texas Workforce Commission. But if you think your family doesn't fall into these categories, just wait for the trickle-down effect.
Some of the money stops, but the strings stay.
Texas agencies have spelled it out for state lawmakers. Federal cuts will hurt, like special education funding, the money for students with disabilities.
Would be reduced approximately $50 to $51 million. Services impacting 20,000 students and potentially up to 900 staff members.
But going without actually isn't an option for certain programs like that.
So we get to keep all of those, but no money comes with them.
It's the fine print that alarmed this House budget panel the most.
Yes, the students with disabilities are still required to receive the appropriate services.
The rules say special ed funding stays, even if the feds aren't paying for it.
So we're going to ask the local taxpayers and the state taxpayers to pay for it, where the federal government is still going to be requiring it.
Either taxpayers pick up the extra cost, or other programs suffer because of it.
But because education programs are forward funded.
Maybe not. Some lawmakers see an upside to the cuts, a conversation about whether the state even needs these federal funds or the strings attached to them.
I have a dear friend whose daughter goes under those regs, and she knows they're ridiculous and they're a waste of money, and she would not spend the money that way.
How to get those strings untied might be the real challenge. And there's also the question, does Texas rely too heavily on federal funding? Take a look. About a third of the entire budget comes from Washington right now. Josh Hinkle, KXAN News.
Josh, thanks for that. Well, today's testimony there showed some other programs facing possible cuts in the Health and Human Services area, HIV and AIDS services, an early childhood program for kids with disabilities, a program investigating abuse of elderly and disabled adults, and another to help prevent family violence.
We're learning about another way these budget cuts could affect Central Texas. The Federal Aviation Administration warned airports around the country about impending cuts inside the control towers. ABIA could be forced to cut air traffic controllers' overnight shifts, but control towers could shut down at 3 area airports: Georgetown, San Marcos, and New Braunfels municipal airports, all facing cuts since they have fewer than 150,000 flights per year.